Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for another edition of WOWSA Live with host Ned Denison. Ned?
Hello, everyone. I'm an epic marathon swimmer. One of my idols in life is our next guest, and I'm currently the chairperson of the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame. Our next guest, Kevin Murphy, is best known as the man with the most English Channel crossings at 34. 3 of them were two-way. He also has 3 crossings of the North Channel between Scotland and Northern Ireland. He's one of only 2 people to ever complete the original Triple Crown, which was the English Channel, the North Channel, and something called the Bristol Channel. He obviously completed the current Triple Crown, which is the English Channel, Manhattan, and Catalina. And he also, for some strange reason, completed the California Triple Crown, Lake Tahoe, Catalina, and Santa Barbara. And he's done many, many, many other marathons in Europe, Africa, North America, and Australia. So Kevin, the first question that I've got for you is, you recently celebrated the 50th year of your English Channel solo, the first one. So if you had simply focused on the English Channel and forgotten about all that other nonsense around the world, would you have broken 100 by now?
I'm not sure what you're asking, actually, because I'm not sure I'd be able to swim when I'm on the 100th anniversary of my first swim. Not successfully, anyway.
No, 100 times.
Oh,
100 times.
I know what you mean, yeah.
100 crossings.
It's a nice thought. I have said to that if Mike Reed were to keep going, I was prepared to hobble down the beach on the Zimmer frame and plop into the water and swim off into the blue. I suppose seriously, I would have liked to have topped Alison Streeter's record of 43 swims, but sadly. I don't think that's possible now, but I don't really regret, because I didn't. Most people talk about me in terms, and you did, as the sort of the English Channel, but I feel that I did lots and lots and lots of other swims, which were a huge challenge, and I enjoyed doing, and I enjoyed I enjoyed the challenge of doing, and. I don't regret those at all. The English Channel is just one of them.
So on the flip side of that question is, if you hadn't been so greedy, sorry, my connection's unstable. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can.
If you hadn't been so greedy with the English Channel, and just done the one, you never really got down to did proper swims in Africa. There were marathons. You never went to South America. What are the other 10 swims you would have loved to have done and haven't gotten to yet?
Well, don't forget, it was in my heyday, the logistics of organising swims was nowhere near as easy as it is now. Things were done by post or mail, if you like. And there was no Google Translate and all the rest of it. And frankly, also, I couldn't afford it. I had 2 jobs, which I did for 20, 25 years to simply earn enough money to do the swims that I did do. So, yes, I would have liked to have done lots of other swims in South America and in Asia. I did do the swim in Sydney Harbour. I did swims in the Nile in Cairo. I did swims across Lake Galilee, and in Hungary and Italy. But the logistics of South America and other places like that were just. Japan, I would love to have done one in Japan. I'd love to have done one in China, but actually, it was just not possible in those days.
And of all the swims you've done, which swim are you the most proud of?
Oddly enough, the swim I suppose I'm most proud of is the one that was unsuccessful. And that was the 3-way channel attempt in 1975, when I swam for 52.5 hours and then was ordered out of the water. If I'd known then what I know now, I would have told the pilot to piss off. But that I think is the most the one of which I'm most proud. As well as that, also there's the North Channel swim. The first one that I did, when it took me 11 hours 21 minutes, and I was only the second person to have swum the North Channel at that point, and that was a male record that stood for 43 years, and I think possibly that was my when I swam the best that I'd ever done. Was when I did that first North Channel swim. But apart from that, it's difficult to single out other swims. At the time, I'm proud of all of them, because that's what I do it for, really, because I do it for the sense of achievement, the sense of satisfaction. If any of them were easy, there would be no achievement and no satisfaction in doing so. I'm proud of all of them at the time.
I've known you for a number of years now. For years, you've been telling me this 52-hour swim was your biggest disappointment, and now you've switched on me and said it's the swim you're the most proud of. Tell the story of the swim. You had been going for the three-way for quite a while, and the day came where you thought you had a shot at it.
Yeah, look, it was both one that I was proud of, and I was obviously disappointed that I didn't do it. I would have loved to have done it. I think what you've got to remember is my mindset. I was the tubby little kid who grew up immediately post-war, and I wasn't really very good at cricket and football. And I had something to prove. I could swim, and I found I could swim for a lot longer than other little kids. I got something to prove to myself, and I got something to prove to all those around me. My father was sort of very disappointed that I wasn't very good at cricket, because he was a great cricket enthusiast. But then when I took to swimming, he supported me absolutely. Now, I swam the Channel in 1968, one way, aged 19, and I thought to myself, I can do better. I can prove something to myself. I need a focus. What can I do? Two-way Channel. So I set about that, and I swam the two-way Channel in 1970. And I got to the end of the two-way Channel, and I thought to myself, the first 10 minutes was never again. I don't want to see the water again. And then 10 minutes later, I thought, what can I do next? And I thought, I can do better than this. I can prove something to myself. I can be the best. And I said, how about the three-way Channel? And everybody laughed and said it was impossible. So I said, it was like a red rag to a bull. And I set about doing that. And I swam around the Isle of Wight, 56 miles. I swam the length of Lake Balaton in Hungary, which was 48 miles. And then in 1975, there I was, plopping into the water, trying the three-way Channel swim. Just a couple of anecdotal stories, if I may, about that three-way, one of which I don't think many people know about this. So even before I started, I got up in the morning, way before anybody else was awake in the hotel, and I'd left out some cornflakes and what I thought was sugar. And I think they thought it was sugar as well. So I put this on my cornflakes along with the milk. And my breakfast was an exceedingly salty cornflakes before setting out to swim for 52 hours. But there was nothing else there, so I had to have it. And the net result was I was sick for the first 10 hours of that 52-hour swim, and sick to such an extent that the pilot leaned over the side and he said, "Yeah, do you want to give this best and go again at some other time?" And I sort of pulled myself together and carried on and stopped being sick by a sort of act of will, really, and then carried on, and it became the 52-hour swim. After the second leg, when I was coming into UK again, I swam right over the top of the sewer just near Folkestone, which was very nasty and smelly. Hit the beach, stood up, and if you've ever seen the skit from Eddie Falls, from Fools and Horses, where David Jason just fell straight flat over, that was me standing up on the beach, straight over it, back into the sea, and carried on swimming, a bit like a sort of automatic pilot. Then come the time when after 52 hours, the pilot leaned over the side and said, "We've got a problem here. The boat was having to circle me because it was so rough, and also, bearing in mind technology in those days, the battery was running out on the boat, and they couldn't go slowly alongside me. They had to circle me to keep the revs up, otherwise the boat would have stopped." And they leaned over and said, "Look, either you come out or we're not going to be able to get you out, or we're going to be ended up being rescued ourselves." And so that was the end of that. And that's why I came out. But as I say, if I'd known then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have done so. Afterwards, I don't know whether you know, I swam Lake Windermere in the race 4 days later after that 52-hour one. And did quite well, actually, funny enough.
Which year was this?
That was
Which
in
year was this?
1975.
We were sent a program by Barry Watson. You must have been in the race with him.
Oh yeah, no, that was back in '67, I think it was. Barry Watson.
Okay, sorry.
He was the first person ever to say, very flatteringly, given that he was the channel record holder at the time, he was the first person to ever say, "Yeah, watch this guy, Kevin Murphy. He might prove to be quite successful." Anyway, I swam Lake Windermere and I got stung by an insect. You know, just something very simple, no problem, except that my system was so depleted that my arm swelled up and became poisonous. So I had to have a drain put in it, simply because I'd worn my systems down so much during that 52 hours. And the other thing which makes people laugh is I couldn't feel the top of my head for about 6 weeks. It was like combing somebody else's hair, because I'd bruised the nerve. I'd bruised the nerves going up through my neck by turning my head to breathe, sort of once every second for 52 hours. And given that I was getting married 3 weeks later, that was a slight problem in combing my hair and not knowing.
Kevin, in the last 20 years, marathon swimming has gone from kind of a niche sport, and we've had an explosion. And one of the things you quite correctly point out is that in the old days, it wasn't so easy to jump on a plane and go off to some swim and have everything organized for you. So what happened in these 20 years, and what's been the best and the worst of it for you?
Well, I suppose to put that in perspective, when I swam the channel first off in 1968, I was one of, I think, 7 to do it that year. And what is it now? It's anything up to 200 or more every year to swim the English Channel. I don't really know. There was a change in mindset back in the day when I was sort of trying to train. They were closing all the outdoor pools, and as soon as they closed all the outdoor pools, that's what everybody wanted. And there was a sort of change in mindset. People wanted to exercise outside. Back in the sort of 60s and 70s, all they wanted to do was watch football. But then we got the exercising outside, the marathon running, the triathlons. The triathletes wanted to swim, to take it one step further and perhaps get out of their wetsuits and do what we do. In the UK, there was the added sort of incentive there was a comedian called David Williams who swam the channel, and a lot of people around the UK thought, well, if a comedian could do it, I can do it. It's a bit like it's a bit like in my local swimming club when I was swimming up and down the mediocre lane in a master session. A guy looked over from the fast lane and said, "Well, if that fat old git can do it, I can do it." You know, it was just people's attitudes changed, and it's now part of a sort of a bucket list of a tick box list, if you like. And I suppose this is where it's not quite so good, is that people come along and whereas the channel used to be the pinnacle, or the Catalini channel used to be the pinnacle. There were certain swims that were pinnacle of what people do, but now they're the first things that people do. And they just want to tick off the list. You know, climb Everest, walk up Kilimanjaro, and swim the Channel, or swim Catalina Channel, or go around Manhattan. Well, in one respect, I suppose that's where people like me come in, where we now try and train others. You don't come up through sort of lower, shorter swims anymore. You come up through going to somebody and saying, "How do I do it?"
Let me change the subject a little bit to your health. You quite famously have had a number of discussions with your shoulder. I describe it that you've had 3 pigs killed over the years. What's the latest with the shoulder, and what's the prospect of English Channel number 35 for you?
My shoulder, I now have what's called a replacement shoulder on the left side. My left shoulder is actually they've taken the bone away and put titanium in instead, and there's a ball and joint, ball and socket on the left side. It's actually a reverse of the way sort of the physiological norm, in as much as the ball's on top and the cup is on the top of my arm. And I said to the surgeon at the time, "Does that mean I can swim backstroke because it's a reverse surgery?" I don't know. Nobody's ever asked me that. But in actual fact, no, it doesn't help me swim backstroke. But I have tried to get back in the water. It's a bit frustrating because I'm much slower. The power is not in my left arm. All the power is now coming from my right arm. But having said that, I have restarted swimming, and I was going fairly regularly this past winter to the local indoor pool, and occasionally to the outdoor in the sea session with friends at Kingsdown near Deal, and swimming for sort of 10 minutes in 8 or 9 degrees. But unfortunately, that's all come to a stop because of the coronavirus and COVID-19. When we're eventually sort of set free again, I will be going back in, and I will be training. And my aspiration is, believe it or not, I want to swim the Channel as the oldest. Now I can do that in 2 years' time, at age 73. Watch this space, basically. I haven't given up on it yet. In actual fact, I'll tell you what, I would like to do 2 more swims, just because 2 more, actually, funny enough, for the CSA rather than CSNPF, just so I can stick one up to my long-time friend and colleague, Mike Reed.
Moving right along and moving down your body, unfortunately. How did this tubby little kid end up being in the competition for the best body in Britain? We don't want to hear too many details, just enough to make us smile.
Well, yeah, I couldn't resist it. I saw at the Serpentine in London, where the open swimming is done, or some of the open is done. They had a little thing up on the notice board saying they were looking for candidates for the Great British Body. And in my 50s and still a little bit slightly overweight, I thought, well, we'll give it a go. So I did, and I got chosen as the Great British Body, which was slightly embarrassing also because we had to appear, luckily a long shot, but you had to appear naked on the telly. But I just couldn't resist being the great British body. I hate to think what everybody else thought about it.
Oh, I can tell you exactly what they thought. They thought that's something that can't be unseen. You know, it was a moment for all of us. We just kind of went, whoa. I want to.
Luckily, it was from a distance.
I want to jump to your professional career. These days, you're doing a lot of work training English Channel swimmers. Before that, you were a journalist and continue to be a journalist. Tell us about your career. Tell us about some of the crazy places you've been. Tell us how the job joined training in strange, unusual places like Manhattan. Give us a flavor for the professional Kevin.
Yes, I had two careers basically, and I was known by two distinct groups of people. In one group of people, I'm known as the swimmer. Another group of people, I'm known as the journalist, and never the twain shall meet, to be honest. What people perhaps don't know is that I was twice nominated and shortlisted for Broadcast of the Year as a journalist for my work as a radio reporter running around the world. For 40 years, I had a ringside seat on history, basically. I was at Lockerbie when the plane came down. I was at Dunblane when a guy shot a whole load of kids. I was in Honduras for Hurricane Mitch. I was in Kuwait and Iraq for the war in 2000 and 2003. I was in New York for 9/11, the immediate aftermath of 9/11. That's one of the ones that sticks in my mind, of course, because all the world's press gathered in the UK, and then one plane was in the air in the entire northern hemisphere, and we flew from the UK to Montreal, and then drove from Montreal to New York, and immediately thrown into it, and being taken to the great huge mound of rubble, and it's something that brings a tear to my eye still, because I always remember the people coming to me and saying, have you seen my brother, my son, my daughter, and you having seen the pile of rubble, I knew that they weren't going to be seen. And the other thing about that was less than 6 months before, I'd swum around Manhattan. So I had vivid in my mind, we were taken up for a reception to the top of the Twin Towers. And I had in my mind the memories of the people who served me, the people who were nice to me, the people who were friendly to me, and up there. And I thought, well, was that one of the people who, the falling man, and so on. It was quite an emotional period for me. And then other times, as I say, in the Iraq War, Kuwait, if you could imagine me being winched down from a helicopter onto a ship with its guns sort of trained on the shoreline as it sailed up the canal towards Basra. There were times when I wouldn't have missed them. I really wouldn't, and I now that I'm sort of put out to grass a little bit, I regret not being part of them. But that was my other career. And having then sort of gone through that period, I still work as a journalist. As I go in to the BBC occasionally and write radio's 2, 3, and 4 bulletins. But my sort of main task now is I feel as if I want to give back to swimming a little bit of what I've had. It's given me a huge amount. You know, I've got friends all over the world. I know, and I've had the satisfaction. I've had the sense of achievement. It's done psychologically. I know I can do it. I know what I'm capable of. So I now try and impart that to other people. And I've set up a swim company called the King Swimmers, and we go off to Menorca once a year. and then we go up to Scotland once a year, and we have a series of swim camps, and I train other people. Having said that, I think my role in a lot of this training is I'm supposed to be inspiring people, but it's an odd thing, you know. I to a certain extent, they inspire me, because when I see them overcoming all their sort of frailties, when I see them going way beyond what they think they can do. You know, the swimmer who came to us and said, I want to swim for 1 hour, and went away having swum for 6. That's inspiring me, and to a certain extent, inspiring me to go back into the channel to attempt this oldest channel swim.
Describe your feelings of satisfaction when Roz Hardiman finished that Loch Ness swim.
That was huge, because we'd taken some swims on Loch Ness, and I knew Roz, and I'd seen her at Dover. I'd seen her training in Dover. I'd seen the determination with which, you know, somebody wheeled her down the slipway, and then she slipped out of her wheelchair and then sort of bounced down the rest of the slipway on her bottom to get into the water. Then off she swam, and then 6 hours later, somebody sort of helped her out, and she bounced up the slipway again on her bottom and hauled herself back into her wheelchair. Having seen that determination, I thought she could do this. You know, she could do this Loch Ness swim, coupled with that is we've taken, as I say, a few swims as the king swimmers down Loch Ness. And the boat that we that we hire to use, has got like a landing craft. The front comes down. So I thought, well, that's ideal for a disabled swimmer, because we can get her out the water if need be. When she finishes, we can get her back into the boat after she's finished, because we can put the front down like the landing craft and haul her back in. So I suggested it to her, and she bit at it, and then it was, well, seeing her struggle through that, I felt a bit bad, really, because I said to her before, you know, just so that there's never any question marks, can you take the elastic strapping off your knee? I didn't really appreciate how much pain that caused her, but she did, and she swam Loch Ness without that elastic strapping on her knee, and only told me afterwards that that causes her quite a lot of pain. I saw her; she can't tread water, because obviously when she feeds, when she feeds, she actually sort of sinks below the water, which is very difficult. And it was cold, and she was in there for 20 hours. I don't know how she did it, but she did.
A rewarding experience.
Yes, it was. And you know, I come back to that sort of thing is inspiring to watch. And isn't that why we do these things? Because if they were easy, who would want to do them? We do them because they are a huge challenge. And she, for one, and there are lots of other swimmers, take on that challenge. They do it. They conquer it. They conquer all their frailties. They conquer everything, and they come out successful.
I have one last little story, and I'll ask you to comment on it. I was fortunate enough to be at your induction into the International Swimming Hall of Fame. You had your little video. You stood up and you said, "I'm really, really happy to be here. I was supposed to be here last year, but I had a triple bypass the day before I was supposed to get on the plane. So I'm really, really happy to be here." I was sitting at a table with part of Michael Phelps's entourage. Michael Phelps wasn't at the table, but his lawyers and bankers and international business, they were all there. And somebody said to me, when did this guy retire? And I went, he hasn't yet. And then you proceeded to say, people say to me all the time, you know, you've done all these marathon swimmings, you must absolutely love it. And your answer was an absolute classic one, and I'll let you tell that answer.
I hate it. When I'm in there, I hate it. People say to me they enjoy these long distance swims, these endurance swims, I think, well, how does that happen? Because I don't like hurting myself, and it hurts. But what I enjoy is the satisfaction of overcoming that and achieving. I enjoy the achievement. I enjoy finishing, and I'd be lost without it. To be honest, without that focus. But no, I when I'm in there, I spend the entire time thinking to myself, whose stupid idea was this? How did I get myself into this? And when can I get out? And then I tell you, I'm not alone in this. You know, there was another swimmer.
I know.
There's another swimmer that was swimming alongside Mike Oram's boat in the Channel. Mike Oram was up on Mike Oram, the pilot, and Mike Oram was up on the top of his wheelhouse trying to adjust something to the radar or something on the mast. And the swimmer in the water was saying, "Fall, you bugger, then I can get out. Fall, you bugger." No, yeah. So as I say, it's a challenge to me to keep going. It's a challenge to me when I get sick in there, and I think I've got to overcome it. But it's doing that gives me the boost to go on and do something else.
Mr. Kevin Murphy, thank you very, very much, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Cheers for now.